All right, you are listening to Hysteria, the podcast that serves cunt, but in a cozy way. Alyssa.
Look at this.
I know.
Who's cozy today?
I feel like if we were going to have a cozy off, you are the cozier one.
I'm well, it's by just merit of my climate.
Right. I mean, you know, where I live, everybody's very temperature sensitive. So if something is like below 65 degrees, we're wearing like parkas. And if it gets above 80, we're freaking out.
But, I mean, you're speaking of the other people. You're a Wisconsinite. You know the difference between hot
Nope,
and cold.
I don't,
No?
actually. It took like a year, and it went away, and now I'm a wimp, and I can't handle anything. But speaking of someone who is the opposite of a wimp, should we tackle the big headline?
Erin, yesterday, in one of the rare occasions that we didn't get Wednesday'd, we got a verdict in the E. Jean Carroll Donald Trump case. Erin, Donald Trump was found liable in the case that E. Jean Carroll brought against him. The court said that he needed to pay her $5 million because they thought he defamed her. And in one of the more curious parts of this case, which we can discuss, he was found guilty of sexual abuse, but not rape. Erin, what's the difference?
I truly don't know, and I'd imagine there's a lot of legalese behind that difference. But what I think is really interesting is because it's a civil trial, they're talking about preponderance of evidence, right? And not beyond a reasonable doubt. So what the jury had to decide was whether it was more likely than not that he defamed her or more likely than not that he sexually abused her. And they couldn't agree on the rape thing. Honestly, I wonder if she's ever going to see that $5 million. Do you think she is?
No, I don't. I mean, I think it's a great award. I think that this is, you know, E. Jean's case is the first case of the more than a dozen women who have accused him of sexual misconduct to be successfully tested before a jury. So this is a great thing. But he's going to appeal this. We know he's going to appeal this. It's going to be held up in court forever. So I don't know if she'll ever see the money, but it is still better than the alternative.
Yeah, I think I wrote something about this for the Daily Beast where I moonlight.
Ooh.
And I really think that E. Jean Carroll is a hero. And I'm not saying that in like I'm not exaggerating or using hyperbole. I think she's a hero. I think that E. Jean Carroll has been around the block enough to know that there's a certain set of things that tend to happen when a woman accuses a powerful man of sexual assault or misconduct or sex pesthood or whatever. You know, she was around, she was writing, she was in the scene when Anita Hill was being badgered and torn to shreds because she accused Clarence Thomas, one of the worst Supreme Court justices in American history, of being a fucking creep to her when she worked for him. She saw the way that, sexual assault, sexual harassment was handled in the 90s. She knew what could happen to her. And yet she was just like, fuck it. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to keep pursuing this anyway. And I find that to be so admirable. And she's so, and not that people that aren't pursuing legal action against Trump aren't tough. But E. Jean is a true icon, I think, of fearlessness when it comes to this, because the odds were stacked against her and she won. She won.
It's incredible. And you know, the jury was made of 6 men and 3 women. So Donald Trump can't say it was just all the vajayjays that came out for her. I mean, 6 men and 3 women thought that he did something wrong. So we'll take it.
Yeah, I also think, you know, he's kind of already out there trying to raise money off of this and saying he never knew her, even though there's photos of them together at a party. He also said that he never had a chance to defend himself, which is not true. He did. He missed the deadline and he didn't. Also, his lawyer's name, this is very immature of me.
No, it's okay. I know what you're going to say and say it.
It sounds like taco penis. It sounds like, I feel like someone's going to, taco pina, but it's almost taco penis, which it's an interesting visual is all I'm saying.
I agree.
So yeah, and you know the Trump's lawyer, I get it. I think that sometimes in stories like this, the lawyers get dragged. Honestly, their job is to just provide the best possible representation for their client. They're not really, they take on a case, I guess, but they don't really have the power to just like be like, well, yeah, I guess you're right in the middle of court. You know what I mean? Like,
right, totally.
We can't like get mad at most lawyers, but I think the Taco Penis was exceptionally an asshole during these proceedings. At one point, he asked Eugene, "Why didn't you scream?"
Oh, yeah. Why didn't you scream? Donald Trump's attacking you. Why didn't you just scream?
I don't know, man. That's just that really betrays a fundamental lack of understanding of how human emotions work, and how things work when you're shocked. But I think overall, this is great. I'm excited about it. I tend to agree with you, Alyssa. I don't think that. Yeah. I'm not optimistic that she's going to see that money. But it'd be cool if she did. I hope she takes a cool vacation.
Yeah, I hope she gets some of it.
Yeah, she better. She deserves it and more. I want to segue into something that we have been meaning to talk about for a few weeks and we keep pushing it off, but I think now is the time. Conservatives have been quietly coming for no-fault divorce in the U.S. So no-fault divorce is when your marriage can dissolve without either party having to prove wrongdoing on behalf of the other party. So, before no-fault divorce was first legalized in California by a guy named Ronald Reagan in 1969, it was really, really hard to get a divorce in the U.S. The people used to move to Nevada because in Nevada it was slightly easier than it was in other places. You just had to live there for 6 weeks and then you could pretty much file for divorce and just say whatever you wanted, but it still was not no-fault divorce. In Alabama, before the Civil War, if you were a couple in Alabama and you wanted to dissolve your marriage, you needed to take the case to the state legislature and obtain a 2/3 majority in both houses.
Can you imagine? Your marriage sucks and you have to go to the legislature?
You just have to, oh God, the Alabama legislature, pre-Civil War.
Right. Even worse.
That is somebody's version of hell. That is like that is literal hell.
That is actual hell.
It sounds absolutely terrible. But in other states that weren't as extreme, you had to prove adultery, cruelty, or abandonment. And usually the party that had done the wrongdoing fared better after the divorce. So you were sort of in like a standoff with your partner. If both of you were just like, we just don't want to be married anymore, or like, this is, my husband is emotionally terrorizing me. Like you can't, it's really, really hard to prove what is happening behind closed doors. So a lot of times people would get creative. So people who really wanted to get a divorce would this is true. In New York, for example, which didn't legalize no-fault divorce until 2010.
So embarrassing for New York. I was so embarrassed for New York.
Crazy. But before that, you had to prove adultery, cruelty, or abandonment. And one of the ways that people used to prove adultery was they would hire a detective to follow around one of the spouses, and the spouse would stage fake adultery. And then
Erin, it sounds like a plot line from As the World Turns. I think they did this in the soaps in the 70s.
It truly does. I mean, you had to prove it to a court that your spouse had cheated on you. So what was happening was all of these people were committing perjury in order to get divorced. They were straight up going and lying. Yeah, I messed around on my husband, because they just really were desperate to get out of marriages. And when no-fault divorce was finally legalized in places like California and then across the country until Slowpoke, New York finally jumped aboard at the very end, there were really positive outcomes, especially for women.
Totally.
There was a decline in suicide, 20%, according to the National Bureau of Economic Research, 20%
Can you imagine?
Women committing suicide. Rates of domestic violence also dropped. And so, of course, now conservatives are targeting this.
Well, an interesting thing, too, a recent statistic was, which we can understand now why conservatives are targeting this among many other things, 2/3 of heterosexual divorces are initiated by women now.
Men would rather change the laws than do some goddamn housework every once in a while.
Then be nicer.
Oh my God. There's a simpler path to fixing this. Like, they want people to get married and stay married, essentially, is what conservatives say. And no-fault divorce threatens
covenant marriage. Erin, in Texas, they want covenant marriage. I was like, is this Big Love? Am I watching Big Love right now?
Wait, what's covenant marriage? Explain that.
Covenant marriage. It says, so this was in the language that Texas introduced to end no-fault divorce. We urge the legislature to rescind unilateral no-fault divorce laws to support covenant marriage and to pass legislation extending the period of time in which a divorce may occur to 6 months after the date of filing for divorce. So, Erin, they believe that marriages are meant to just be a covenant and you're supposed to stay together even if you hate each other because it's better for the family unit and better for the kids.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
They just want, I mean, I honestly think that conservatives want women to be forced into a life of indentured servitude to men that they cannot escape. Look, here's the thing about marriage. I'm married. I take it very seriously. I plan on being married until one of us dies or we both kill each other. But like, I also think that I really am glad that I have the freedom to divorce, and I'm sure you are too. And like, I think that, like, look, if you think marriage is like, you know, a magic party and you can never break up, then fine, believe in the magic. Why do you need the law to back you up? Why do you need like the power of the state to enforce like a contract essentially that you signed with another person? It doesn't make like any sense.
No-fault divorce is so accepted. It's actually, you know, colloquially, however you say that word, it's irreconcilable differences. This is kind of how we hear it referred to. People get divorced for irreconcilable differences. There was a movie about it in like the 70s or early 80s. And from the 70s or early 80s, we now have the RNC in 2016 actually talking about this at their convention. They considered adding language to their platform that said children are made to be loved by both natural parents united in marriage. So here's my question. Then are they cool with no-fault divorce if you don't have kids? Like, is the only reason to get married to have kids?
In Nebraska, the GOP has publicly stated that its belief is that no-fault divorce should only be for couples that don't have kids. I think it's really, like, it's truly bleak. I think that part of the reason we're talking about this now is because there's this right-wing blowhard named Steven Crowder, who became a meme because this is like what I picture when I picture him. I picture him just like being a sort of avatar of like male frustration.
Yeah.
And sort of a belief that he is better and has more to offer than he does, to a like cartoonish degree. If he were a character in a comedy, he would be a very funny character. But if, you know, he's a character in real life and it's not funny at all because a lot of people believe what he says. He recently, he lives in Texas, and recently his wife filed for divorce from him. And he took to his podcast and was whining about it in a very, you know, manly. He was whining in a very manly way. But he was upset because he was basically saying your wife can just cheat on you and leave and then she gets half of everything, which is like a way oversimplification. And that's not normally what happens. But then, a couple weeks later, a video came out that it really wouldn't matter if Texas had no-fault divorce or not, because there's video of Crowder berating and being straight up emotionally abusive to his wife, who at the time was pregnant with their twins. She was 8 months pregnant. So I don't know what his point is.
And wasn't he accusing her of like not doing her wifely duties?
I don't know what that means. What does he think? Is
it cooking and cleaning? Is that
my
his
impression
vibe?
was that it was sex. My impression was that it was sex.
Oh. Here I was thinking it was dinner.
Look, she's 8 months pregnant. Some people are able to have sex throughout their pregnancies and it's comfortable and fine. Most people are not. So whatever wifely things he was expecting of her, whether that was like cleaning the house, which when you're all balanced weird like that, is kind of hard when you're 8 months
I cannot
pregnant.
imagine.
Trying to have sex. There's like one position that works when you're that pregnant, and sometimes that position doesn't feel good. What does he like? Gross, dude. She's carrying your children. I just hope that in their divorce settlement, there is a generous trust fund set up to pay for those twins' future extensive therapy, because he seems like a shitty dad. Yeah. Shitty person, shitty husband. So, you know, what's super interesting is that it really wouldn't actually take a legislative vote to end no-fault divorce in Texas. I mean, we just saw something happen in Texas that affected the entire country with the mifepristone ruling by Judge Matthew Kacsmaryk, who is coincidentally a sympathetic judge to the no-fault divorce.
Shocking. That is so shocking.
Yep. If the right plaintiff shopped and made sure that they filed their case in the right district, they could, oh my goodness, just happen to end up having their case in front of Judge Kacsmaryk.
So weird.
Who could, because of the way the drunk 22-year-old geniuses who founded our country set it up, he could theoretically make no-fault divorce illegal in the state of Texas if the right case was filed. So that's fun. Do you think, Alyssa, that it even makes sense for women to get married anymore?
No. It's like, why? If you live in any of these states, what is the point? You know, everything's a little bit of a risk, right? But if they say that 50% of couples end up getting divorced, which is the stat that's always thrown around.
50% of marriages end in divorce, which includes second and third marriages. So people that tend to get married a bunch of times also tend to get divorced a bunch of times. So like it's not 50% of people, 50% of marriages.
Yes, 50% of marriages. So why would you risk it? Why would you put yourself out there to end up before fucking Judge Kacsmaryk potentially? I mean, this is they really are trying to wind back the hands of time.
It's crazy because there are ways to incentivize marital partnerships and incentivize having children. If there were some sort of cultural shift in the way that men are expected to interact in their households, in terms of contributing to household labor, there's still a lot of stats out there that show that even when women earn more than their husbands outside of the home, they still do the lion's share of the housework. So yeah, I mean, I guess there could be like a culture shift around men actually performing more duties when it comes to housework, house maintenance, childcare. But then also there could be like, legal shifts around the way that we support parents. We could make parenting easier and less stressful.
Yeah. Paid leave, all kinds of things.
I feel like if parenting were less stressful because of things that we put into place or we refuse to fix, I think the stress that like the system causes families, like they take it out on each other. Like it's not right. Rocket science. Like you're a family trying to figure out childcare and you've got 2 kids under 4. And one of them is an infant and you only have like 6 weeks of family leave and every daycare in your neighborhood has a 9-month waiting list. What the fuck are you supposed to do with your baby all day? Somebody's got to quit. Right. It's like the amount of stress that this dumbass system we live in causes, like I feel like directly contributes to the divorce rate and to couples being unhappy with each other after they have children and to all manner of problems. Like fucking fix it, guys. Like the answers are right there. Make it less stressful to have children.
Make it less. It's like, could you just imagine though that you're one of these men in Texas and you're like, you know what? The world is just falling apart. No-fault divorce has led to less women being abused, less spousal homicide, less depression, less domestic violence. There's a problem with this law and we should fix it. Like what? Like what is that room of dudes? Like, I don't know, Erin. It's reading all of this stuff and doing all this research. It was really hard to fathom that they'll do anything to control women, including ignore facts and logic.
well, let's just pretend that women are animals because they see us as animals anyway. Let's say you have a horse, right? You have a horse, and the horse lives in a barn, and there's like a giant hornet's nest in the barn, and the hornets keep stinging the horse, and the horse is like really upset. And you're not giving the horse good food, and the horse is kind of sick, and there's not enough sunlight. But like the gate of the barn, if the horse pushes against it hard enough, the horse can like escape. And like, so the horse escapes all the time because the horse is like getting stung. The horse hates being in there. The horse fucking hates it.
The horse is not living its best life.
The horse is having a terrible time. And rather than being like, oh, you know what? I'm going to knock down the hornet's nest. I'm going to give my horse better food. I'm going to take care of it. You're like, I'm going to lock the gate so the horse can't get out. Like, fuck you. You're a terrible horse owner. Like,
Let the horse out.
Let the horse out.
Happy to be the horse in this scenario.
Let the horse out or fix the barn. You know? Don't lock the horse in a crappy barn. That's the worst of both worlds. You fucking psychos. Anyway. Speaking of psychos, I really want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about this, but we didn't talk about this when it was first in the news. And I really want to put it out there because it is it's not like we're moving toward a future where men are trying to use, reproductive coercion to control women. It's here. It's here. It might not have come for you or your friends yet, but it's here and it's coming. So there was a man in Texas who I believe we talked about on the show who sued his wife's friends after they helped her get abortion pills. But the real background of the case was that the man knew his wife had the pills before she took them. He found them in her purse while secretly searching for it, and then he put them back because he wanted her to take it so he could then blackmail her into staying with him.
Yep.
He also searched his wife's phone and took screenshots of texts between her and her friends who were talking about getting her medication abortion, and then he reported his wife to the police. But not because she wanted to keep her from having an abortion. He just wanted to keep her from divorcing him after years of emotional abuse.
What the fuck?
Yeah. He also, this man also called his wife a whore in front of her coworkers.
Right.
His lawyer is a man named Jonathan Mitchell, who's an important quote unquote pro-life piece of shit. And he's representing the abusive husband. So, like, the pro-life movement likes to pretend that it's all, like, Ann Getty's pictures of babies with words
and
like,
cabbage.
What? I can smile at 6 weeks. And it's like, bitch, that's a 9-month-old baby. A 6-week-old fetus looks like it's like a translucent flesh tadpole. And it's tiny. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? But that's not the pro-life movement. The pro-life movement is representing abusive shitholes. Shitheads
is good too.
Shitholes. Representing these men that would do anything to abuse their wives into staying. So yeah. Anyway, so that's where we're at with men trying to chase us back into the kitchen and keep us there forever. They're really going for it in Texas. Okay, we've got one more story. Alyssa, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, this is just a quickie. Everyone who needs a mammogram, which is anybody over 40, according to the U.S. Preventative Services Task Force, should go get one. Erin, this was very controversial about 10 or so years ago, back in 2009, when they upped the age for your annual mammogram, your preventative screening, to 50. This was very confusing. It gave insurance companies the running room to deny mammograms to people who couldn't prove between the age of 40 and 50 that they had a elevated risk and therefore needed them. This actually was a problem for me when I went to go get my first mammogram, but luckily, Erin, I have dense breasts, so I am technically in a higher risk. But wouldn't have known
is that
had
lucky?
I not.
It's lucky. Wait. It's lucky that you're higher risk? Oh, it's lucky that your insurance will pay for it because.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that I found out that I have dense breasts, which usually means you have to go and then get an ultrasound after your mammogram to make sure there's nothing living in that dense tissue. This is very important. Everyone listening, if you are 40, go get your mammogram, because 12.9% of women will be diagnosed with breast cancer at some point. So get your mammogram. The reason that they actually have gone back and lowered it to 40 is that they don't know why, but they're seeing higher instances of younger women actually developing breast cancer. And one of the reasons, which my doctor had told me, but is worth everybody knowing, is that if you are a woman who has either put off your childbearing, or, you know, you've put off having kids, or you've decided not to have children, you actually are at an elevated risk for breast cancer. Women of color at elevated risks for breast cancer. So if you're 40, go get your mammogram.
Can I just say, I'm not there yet, but there's gotta be a better way than the mammogram. Can't they just go straight to the ultrasound?
Okay, so do you know how many times I've asked this?
Because like, why can't this were men, if men were getting their balls smashed between two plates every year after age 40, you better fucking believe they would figure out something better.
Like, isn't there just like an MRI situation where they can put us in the tube and just take the pictures? Because I have to tell you, it is honestly fine, but when you have little tiny boobies like I do, it is not comfortable getting that mammo.
I think it is not comfortable, but less comfortable than a mammogram is a cancer diagnosis.
100%. So I put my pink robe on proudly, and I'm like, smush my titty.
But, you know, look, I'm just putting it out there, doctors. Please figure something out. Please
Anything.
Figure something out.
Anything.
I'm like, every part of my torso is wincing thinking about getting this done, even though I know when the time comes I will do it, but I'm going to have to take myself out to ice cream afterwards like I just got blood drawn and I'm a 12-year-old.
Well, and here's just my thing, Erin, about the mammograms and about insurance and about the risk age. The risk age should be a great guidance, right? It's like, okay, none of the women in my family have had breast cancer, so I'm just going to go at 40, find out what's going on. But, like, what does insurance think you're doing? Like, say that you want to get one at 35 or you want to get one at 30. Who the fuck cares? Why won't insurance cover it? How are you scamming the system by getting a mammogram? It's not like you're asking for opioids. You know what I mean? Like,
it's not even like you're asking for
benefiting.
Like, it's not even like you're asking for like, you know, like a mild sedative. Like whatever. It's so,
you're asking to have your boobs squished between two plastic plates. Okay, Who's gaming the system on this one? I don't know. I wish insurance companies would just preventative screenings for anything just seem like such a low-cost investment in our health. I don't really understand it, but
I just really need to get to a point where we have universal health care so that we can just abolish all insurance companies, because fuck them. Fuck them. There's no such thing as liking your insurance. They're literally the middleman. I wanted to say, I really hope that moving forward, you know, blaming women for putting off having children, for a rise in breast cancer rates, I think that there is like a link between those two things.
Yeah.
We haven't really done enough research into how what we consume and what touches our food impacts cancer rates, especially breast cancer rates. And so I think that, like, I just really... Look, our environment is being poisoned by giant corporations whose leadership and the heirs of the leadership are able to lead comfortable, long, happy lives. And everyone is suffering a little bit as a result of it. And I do think that, like, the sooner we minimize how much we poison our environment, the healthier all human beings will be. So, yeah, get your mammogram and then, you know, lobby your representatives about no longer dumping poison into the groundwater.
Yeah. And with that.
Oh, wait, I have one more thing. This is kind of like a fun story, but it's not a fun story because of like what happened. But it's well.
Do you have a little fuck that guy for the group?
I've got to fuck that guy. Fuck that guy. Fuck Texas State Representative. We're in Texas a lot this week. Fuck Texas State Representative Bryan Slaton, He is fucking disgusting. He is one of the leading voices in Texas speaking out against groomers. And by groomers, he means LGBTQ people, drag queens reading books at story hours, anybody that targets someone who is young and inexperienced and tries to slowly ready them for a sexual encounter. Oh, wait a second. Bryan Slaton himself is a groomer. The House Committee in Texas wants to expel him because he engaged in an inappropriate sexual relationship with a subordinate who was 19 years old.
Yikes!
And it went down at his apartment. So gross. He gave the young woman alcohol and then he had sex with her. I really need, if you're 19 and you're listening to this, if you're 18 and you're listening to this, it is not your fault if your creepy older boss came onto you and you didn't know what to do. Not your fault.
Mm-hmm. Not your fault.
I also really want everyone who hasn't had that happen to them to go into adulthood running, thinking, it is not okay for this to happen ever. And it is not a compliment when a man shows me attention like this. And it is not a reflection of me being particularly mature or special. It is this person being a fucking creep. Slaton was also, he apparently he allegedly did this with other staffers too. Yeah, he was a real family man, 45-year-old who had sex with at least one of his staff and also was creepy with several others. And he's repeatedly declined comment. But fuck that fucking guy. Fuck that fucking groomer.
Fuck that fucking guy. But here's
him.
my question, Erin. If his wife wanted to divorce him, would the Texas legislature believe that it was a fault-free divorce?
No, I think they pretty much proved adultery. Pretty much proved it. Yep. Well, so they can go ahead and repeal that law, but she can still divorce that motherfucker.